Welcome back into Global Hoops Official. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. Gil McGregor here with Kyle Irving. It's NBA draft season. NBA draft season is upon us. The NBA draft lottery recently wrapped up, and the Detroit Pistons are big winners. Everybody thinks that Cade Cunningham is the consensus number one overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. Well, Kyle, you're the draft expert. Before we get into what it means moving forward, what makes this guy so special? How come there's no other option but him at number one?
Well, you don't have to be much of a draft expert to know that Cade Cunningham is the guy in this draft. It's his size, it's his versatility, it's the fact that he can play point guard, it's the fact that he can play shooting guard, small forward, whatever you need from him, he can give you. He's a prolific scorer, unbelievable playmaker. He already has a bunch of NBA-ready moves in his bag, like the classic step backs. He uses his body, his size well to finish around the rim, and he's just got a knack for winning, especially with his play on the defensive end. He's a stout defender. He's versatile. He can guard 1 through 3, maybe even 4, depending on how much energy you really want him to exert on that end of the floor. But he's just somebody that comes into the NBA with a demeanor and ready to win. I mean, you heard him talk about it on JJ Redick's podcast. He had lofty goals for himself. He wants to be competing for a playoff spot in year 1, wants to be an all-star in year 2. And by the end of his career, he wants to be the greatest of all time at his position. And while that sounds, pretty ridiculous to think about all the great jumbo guards like the LeBron Jameses and Magic Johnsons of the world, for someone that's going to be the number one overall pick and he's a franchise-altering talent, you got to like having that sort of confidence in himself. And with how talented he is and how ready he is to perform at the next level, he shouldn't sell himself short of anything short of that.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about his player profile as a big guard. He's like 6'8", 220, right? Over on NBA.com, you, me, Carlin Gay, each had different guys we could see him being at his peak. I said Jason Tatum just because of the way I see him get to his spots. You said Luka Doncic. He tries to play like Luka Doncic. And Carlin said Grant Hill, who was a monster in his prime with the Detroit Pistons. Talk about the Detroit Pistons. Troy Weaver has done a great job really reconstructing the roster. It looks nothing like it did this time last year, but they have a young core. Killian Hayes was a top 10 pick last year. 2 all-rookie guys in Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. Jeremy Grant is the guy who signed a big contract with them all season. They also have Mason Plumlee on the roster as well. So should Cade Cunningham land number one, do you think he can elevate that young core to being a playoff team right away?
That's lofty expectations. I mean, we were just talking about lofty expectations, but that's a tough task because, there's great prospects in place in Detroit. Like you said, Sadiq Bey was first team all rookie, and he even received 1 vote for rookie of the year, or third place vote for rookie of the year. Yeah. Isaiah Stewart was someone that came along really strongly at the end of the season. This guy was posting like almost 20 double-doubles. And then you have Killian Hayes, who, he had a tough hip injury earlier in the season, but as a playmaker, he displayed the ability to be a full-time starting point guard in the NBA at times. I think where it gets tricky a little bit is that Cade Cunningham really is a ball-dominant offensive initiator. And if Killian Hayes can't really score, which he didn't really, the guy's 18 years old. There's still plenty of time for him to develop, but he was very much a pass-first point guard last season. Then maybe things get a little tricky there, but the idea that Cade could play next to Killian Hayes, if they are committed to Killian Hayes for the future, I think that's something that's interesting, and he could fit in next to him. But that's also part of the reason of what makes him the surefire number one pick is his versatility to play multiple different positions and still impact the game the same way that he does, whether he's playing point guard or small forward. And like you just said with the player comparisons, I think that's something that's interesting about Cade Cunningham is that he does have a little bit of Luka Doncic in him. I can see a little bit of Grant Hill. I can see a little bit of Jason Tatum. And it's not very normal as 3 players that play basically completely different positions. Tatum, Grant Hill, Luka, they're all guys that could initiate their own offense. They have a little bit of playmaking in their genes, a lot of playmaking in his genes for Luka Doncic, and they can all score. But I think that Cade does have a little bit of each of their game in him. He has a little bit of Luka's ability to make advanced passes, play with his back to the basket out of the post. He has a little bit of Jason Tatum step back in him, and like you said, pick his spots, get to where he's comfortable on the floor and making you pay. And then when it comes to Grant Hill, is just somebody who, before his injury, is a freak athlete, explosive, get downhill, get to the rim, score from the outside. He can do a little bit of that too. And the thing is that, like I said, he brings it on the defensive end. Like that's something that gets lost in translation because of how polished his offensive game is at this point early on in his career. So in terms of fitting with the rest of the core of the Detroit Pistons, I think it's more so how does the rest of the core fit with him? But he is someone that can slide in seamlessly. And I think that he's someone that can make players like Saddiq Bey, players like especially Jeremy Grant, just adding him some help on the scoring end of offense. And Isaiah Stewart, he's someone that Cade Cunningham can grow alongside those players and elevate that team to maybe fringe playoff status now that we have the play-in tournament handy with us as 10 teams make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
Fair enough. We saw LaMelo Ball do it last year with the Charlotte Hornets en route to winning Rookie of the Year. They made the play-in, did not make the playoffs. Injury had a hand in that as well. Now, you talked about a little bit a potential of maybe a complicated fit with a ball-dominant guy like Killian Hayes, and there have been some reports that the Pistons are exploring options and maybe moving the number 1 pick and opting away from taking Cade. We saw the Celtics trade down from number 1 a few years ago that landed with Jason Tatum. Ironically, do you think that it's a smoke screen? Do you think that maybe they don't see the perfect fit, or they think they can build better without having the number 1 pick? What is your take on these reports, or is it just nonsense?
I think that if you're the Pistons, you almost have to put that rumor out there, right? Like, this is such a, like I keep saying, an NBA ready talent, a franchise altering talent, that if you just throw that rumor out there, people are going to be calling your phone one way or another. So you're going to pick up and say, all right, well, what do you have in mind for me? No, that's not what I'm interested in. Hang up the phone. So really, I think I don't want to call it a smokescreen, because I think they are willing to field offers, because if a team is willing to meet their demands, and I'm sure they're astronomical, I think that maybe they would consider it, but it also is a smokescreen in the sense that, let's be real, they plan on taking Cade Cunningham. He's going to be the first overall pick of the NBA draft, whether he goes to the Pistons or someone that they traded the pick to. And in terms of fitting that young core, like we already just said, I mean, Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart was a young prospect last year. Killian Hayes was one of the youngest prospects in the draft last year. If that's the core that they plan on building around, then Cade Cunningham fits that perfectly. And I'm not exactly sure what other teams would have to offer unless it's moving back in the draft, included with other draft picks and maybe some already established NBA players that would really fit the timeline better than Cade fits the timeline of the young prospects that the Pistons already have on their roster.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about like that, and looking as far as building for the future. That is really what they've done. I mentioned Troy Weaver again, the job he's doing with the franchise. Pistons have 4 selections in the upcoming draft, including an early 2nd-round pick. So all signs would indicate that they're going to build for the future. I personally agree with you there. I think that they're taking Cade Cunningham, but you might get a deal that you never expected to get on the table, and that never comes through if you don't even say that you're listening to offers. So as a front office executive, you got to do your due diligence and field everything that comes your way, even if you have no intentions on accepting it. So we'll see how that goes. Keep it locked in with us here on Global Hoops Official as we gear up for the 2021 NBA draft and continue to react to the 2021 NBA playoffs. We talk about young talent. Trae Young still doing this thing in the conference finals, 48 points in game 1 against Milwaukee Bucks, and a lot of other things going on with the young guys in the NBA. So you know that the draft can alter your franchise right away. Make sure to subscribe below if you have not already, and keep it locked in with us on Global Hoops Official. Until next time, for Kyle Irving, I'm Gil McGregor. Thanks for tuning in.